I don't think we need to revisit the statistics. I imagine that we have a general consensus in the room that we both want and need to encourage more female entrepreneurs, if that's the word that you choose to use in Scotland. But in terms of how we do that, there is a sort of glaring fault line at the moment. Should we design services and support specifically for women, or is gender irrelevant? And of course, we can always consider a mix of the two. So we're going to tackle that one head on to start off with. But clearly, there's lots of things that we can be talking about today. And I want it to be a very free and open discussion. Please don't think you've got to stick rigidly to a track. And I know that you're all here to take part in this discussion. You're not going to sit, I mean, much as these people have got lots to tell you, experience and great ability, it's not a listening session. I really want us all to have a conversation. And on that, actually, can we alter the lighting just a little bit just to make sure that we can see everybody? And maybe just have a bit of a more open, see at the back? Either I'm good at the back, no, I'm sorry. Yeah, I think that's a little bit better. Now, so you see I have a phalanx of highly talented and expert people with me. I'm going to give you just headline introductions to them just now, or else we'd probably be at the end of the discussion before we knew it. And then you've got information in your programs, and as we go along, we'll sort of fill in the blanks, and I hope that's all right with my panel as well. But say hello, first of all the way from the USA, as they say, Julie Weeks. Sorry, I'm going to have to ask you all to do cheesy wee waves, so there you go. Julie, one of our quite expert at that. Do that again? Perfect. We might have a vacancy soon for someone who can wave like you. That was it. I didn't mean it like that. I take that right back. Julie is one of our keynote speakers today, and you'll hear a lot more from her this afternoon. We have Sonia Brown from the National Black Women's Network. We wave from Sonia. Yeah, it's good. All right, well, let's not make a thing of the wave. Tanya Ewing from Bloom VC. Hi, Tanya. Nora Senior is beside me from Scottish Chambers of Commerce and Weber Shandwick. We have Natalie Crayton. Actually, you should wave your sea salt from Hebridean sea salt. See? You're going to have to perfect that whenever you wave here. Morag Malloy at the end there is from Scottish Women in Business and also Fission Creative. Sandwiched in the middle there, Iain Scott. That was a very good eyebrow. Is a cognitive business therapist. Yes, we're intrigued, Iain. You've got us. You've absolutely got us. And Gordon Merrylees from the Royal Bank of Scotland. And he is a nice man. Right, I just want a little bit of a show of hands from the room, and I don't know what terminology that you are comfortable applying here, but tailored support, designed for women, if we take that on one side, and mainstream support, if we take that as a counter. So who in the room here would say, and we'll just do a show of hands at the moment, that you need tailored support for women? Right, what are we thinking, panel? 60%? Just to make sure my eyesight's not good. Who would say that we do not need that we should be focusing on mainstream? Right, okay. Few, did I look, that side of the room, give me your hands up again? Yeah. Okay, well, I think it's actually, would you say 80-20? Does that sound, well, that's interesting. So those of you who've identified yourself on the 20 side, you're way out there. No, I mean, what I mean is I am talking to you. Sonia, start us off, because I know that you are very keen on having tailored support for women. You think it's very important. Tell us why.
A joined-up approach, or a one-hat-fits-all, assumes that everything is perfect, all the factors are perfect, and everything is fine, it's all equal, and we don't need to reduce the gaps. But what we have to recognise and respect is that women start and grow businesses at different levels and at different points. And the considerations which I think we need to include when we look at the support offered to women is around educational attainment, financial restrictions, occupational segregation, family commitments, We now have more female breadwinners, we have single-headed homes, and we have non-traditional family setups. We also have to remember that women are now going to have to work longer. And really, do you have the skills that require, and it's going to be world-class skills for a global market. And then on top of all of that, we have to think about culture. We have to think about some women facing barriers through religion and traditional norms. So I say a one-hat-fits-all approach doesn't fit a dynamic market made up of micro-niches.
Okay, all right. Hand the mic, if you don't mind, to Tanya Ewing next to you. Tanya, who is the founder of UGCO, have I got that right? Which is basically massive. That was a good explanation. Do you recognise all of those barriers and think that we do need specifics to get over those?
No, my own personal experience, but this is just my experience. You know, I feel like after 7 years of coming up for air to see actually how everybody else is getting on. But when I started out with an idea and some sketches, I was still registered disabled, so I had gone through trying to get out of a wheelchair, so I was still using aids sometimes. I didn't have my driving licence back. I was dyslexic, so you know, I've got all the challenges of that, which actually I find as being actually good. I like being dyslexic. I think it's not a handicap at all.
That's for another day, that one.
I was also going through IVF. I just had my first computer. It took me 6 months to understand the reply all button. You know, I didn't have anybody sitting next to me teaching me how to do it at a workplace. And at no point in my journey have I had any problems or issues at all getting any help or support that I required just for asking. Also, I knew my customer base was going to be, you know, not gender specific. It was just I was going to have to sell the product out there. So no, I don't feel there is a need. However, there's two areas that I feel myself you do need to give bespoke support to women to get over different hurdles that they may face, but not for general business support.
I mean, are you saying then, if you're determined enough and you want to do it enough, then regardless of gender, you can do it? Is that the message?
Oh, absolutely. You know, I was my bump and I was asking people to help me free of charge, and at no point did any of them say, just get yourself home again, you're about to be a mum. You know, they were really, really helping me, of all types of people and all types of workplace, you know, of organisations and workplaces were falling over themselves to help me. But I think it was maybe my attitude and my determination that won them over.
So is Sonia seeing obstacles that aren't there?
As I say, I'm coming up for air. I don't know what's out there for everybody else, but I, myself, living in Scotland, have always said I would not have got my invention out there as quickly as if I'd lived anywhere else in the country. I think we've got a fantastic support network throughout Scotland to help any types of businesses get themselves established.
Right, okay. I want to bring in the audience now, but before we do, just because everyone will be now curious, tell us a bit about UGCO.
At home, with my illness, like to keep my heating on rather than wear lots and lots of thermals. And I got a very big gas bill, really big gas bill. And I got annoyed at myself for actually letting it get that high. And I thought, if I just turn my radiators down, what difference would the cost make? So I went to look at my meter, not to read it, but to engage with it. And it's rubbish. It's outside as well. It was freezing. So it wouldn't tell me. So I went online to try and find something that would display energy live, would show me live energy. And there was nothing, absolutely nothing, only smart metering. And smart metering is meters, they're in cupboards, they're hidden away. And it was my vision that we would all have live energy, some form of being able to see it immediate. So as you turn things on and off, use things, you can see the cost immediately. So you can take action, you can make informed decisions. And there was nothing. So when I put in my patents, I was one of 3 individuals in the world that had ever put it in place.
An engineer? Were you an inventor in that field? I mean, what was your level of expertise?
No, nothing. I didn't even go to college or university, and I just did lots of jobs. I think lots of jobs probably helped me, you know, be inquisitive.
So it was the idea that this would be a useful thing, and then you presumably had to go out there and source all the kind of expert.
Yes, it doesn't just happen. You have to work very hard and find a lot of different people to give you the support for different things that you require. So there was a massive amount. I remember after only 3 months, I listed how many people were helping me. It was 54 people. I wasn't paying them. They wanted to help me.
So give us a good news story. How successful did UG Co become?
It's getting there. I think one of the biggest
You
successes...
can tell she's been modest on that, can't you?
I lobbied the British government to say that smart metering wasn't enough, and on the 9th of December 2009 they mandated that all homes in the UK by 2020 will have a live display with their smart meter. So if anything, I've changed the way that metering in smart homes is now going to be forever. It's not just within UK and UK, but in the world.
I wouldn't clap. She's the reason I had to give up my tumble dryer. I'd have been quite happily drying my towels if it wasn't for her.
Kaye, I remember the programme. You had under heating in your bathroom. Yes.
I had to switch it off because my bloody meter told me it was costing me a fortune.
Yeah, but until you got one of those, you had no idea.
Oh, I loved that underfloor heating. Anyway, I had to get a pair of slippers. No, I'm totally respectful of what you've done. Right, okay, I want some opinions. I know some hands came up to say no, they don't think we need tailored support, and other people who feel that we do. Let's maybe some of the voices who feel that we don't need tailored support, and tell me why you think that. And now, I've already flushed you out, so don't start going cold on me, please. There was a lady down here, yes. I wonder, can we get a mic? Here we go. Just probably easier with them. Oh my God, they're going to put you on camera as well. Listen. Just to ramp it up a wee bit for you.
Oh, no pressure then. I think I'd said no because, and again, it's coming from my own experience, and I think if you're determined enough and you're prepared to get out there and ask for the help and keep driving it forward. But I would caveat that with saying I don't have experience. You know, I was fortunate enough to have had a decent education and to have a husband who's helping pay the bills while I develop the business, and my children are grown up now. So that's coming from my point of view, but there will be women out there, I take it, who don't have issues, who do have issues with childcare and things like that. So I think it's like quotas. I don't want to be supported for the sake of it because of my gender. I want to be recognised for what I'm doing.
So you feel a bit uncomfortable with the idea of female specific. Now, let's just, thanks for that, thank you. I want other people who said no, come on, put up your hand again. I just want to get a snapshot of the people who are saying no, they're not comfortable with it, why, and thank you very much for starting us off. Come on, I'm not going to let you away with it. The doors are locked, so you might as well just, this lady here, thank you.
Hi. Again, it's probably just based on my own experience, and any issues we've had with getting help have not been gender specific. They've maybe been business stage specific rather than related to whether I was female or whether male. So I think there could be more. I know there is some good help out there, but I think there could be more available to people to help them learn how to run a business. And
but it's
not
for
just
people rather than women.
Yeah, and not just, I think there's a lot there if you're a high growth business as well, but just for people wanting to run their own business. So that would be why.
And do you share a kind of uneasiness about support that is specifically tailored towards women?
Yeah, I don't know. I just, I don't think the problems are that different. You know, if you've got a family, a young family, I think nowadays it's much more shared care, and that I have 3 young children, so that's an issue that has to be worked with my husband. It's not just my problem. Right, okay. I can hear a bit of over there, but I want to take just one more person who feels that we don't want to have, or we shouldn't be going down the road of women-focused support. And there was some hands over this side, so come on, where was the hand over this side? One of my ex-producers at the BBC is sitting there, and if she doesn't put her hand up soon... But thankfully she's been saved by this nice lady here.
Hi, Yvonne Shaw, West Lothian Council. I'm one of the women who actually help a range of people set up and grow their businesses. My own view is that the question was perhaps too black and white. I think there is a middle ground somewhere. I think when it does come to business support and advice, I don't believe it's gender specific. I do, however, think there is work to do before that stage to help women develop confidence, to develop networking skills, maybe to develop sales skills that they wouldn't traditionally have because of the job roles that they've had previously. So yes, I think there should be advice to get women to a point where they then can successfully move into business. But I think the actual business skills is something that's fairly generic. I'd also say that in our team of business advisors, we're probably fairly predominantly women, so I don't know if maybe the men locally would prefer having their own gender-specific support there too.
Sonia, how do you respond to these kind of comments? People feeling slightly uncomfortable. And it's an interesting distinction you make, that, actually. The business advice. I mean, business advice presumably should be gender neutral, because the best way of running a business is presumably the best way of running a business, regardless of your gender. But it's getting to that point, I suppose.
I think, that we've got lots of women are not the same. We're just not the same. And we have to recognise, yes, if I'm confident and I've had a really good start to life, and I'm fortunate to have a very good husband who supports my dreams and aspirations, that's all fine. But there's a vast majority of women who don't have that support, who don't have that educational level, who don't have that opportunity to develop enterprise in a standard route. We might be trying to get to A to Z, but not all of us will have a straight route. Some will be zigzags, it'll be an S-curve for some, and we need to recognise that. And one of the things that keeps coming up for me is that we cannot use our personal, always depend on our personal viewpoint to define a national strategy. And men do have men-only networks. They do have their gentlemen's clubs where we're not allowed in, and they do make decisions there. And, IODs and chambers of commerce were formed by men for men. And we have to recognise that they network differently from women. And so there's things that we are, or places and environments and situations where we are not part of the conversation. And we need to start taking ownership for our development. And if we want to see more women starting businesses, we need to help other women to start businesses.
What do you envisage, Sonia?
I just think that, enterprise is vibrant, it's energising, it's a fantastic opportunity for people to come in, no matter what your background. Enterprise is fun, but it's hard work, and it's very difficult sometimes, and it's very lonely, and, passion can get you there, but you still need to make profits, and sometimes we don't have access to the information, the skills, the knowledge, the support, the networks, the role models, the champions. There's a whole list of things that we are...
Yeah, but that's what I mean. What are you proposing then that would bridge that gap?
I'm a great believer in networks, because the old boys... networks work because it works.
Female-only networks?
I'm totally for female-only networks, and as you build your confidence, build your skills, you can then integrate into mainstream. Some people can go straight into mainstream, but others may need to take smaller steps, more focused steps that cater to their needs and desires. So if you're a single mother, there was talks of single mothers wanting to set up businesses. Well, not all women are just single mothers. They may have come from domestic violence. They may have come, suddenly my husband's traded me in for as a younger model. I've got to get over that. But there's issues that will knock your confidence, but it doesn't mean you're not good at what you actually do and deliver. So we have to look at it holistically.
Okay, all right, thanks. The female-only networks, we'll go into that. I'm interested to know what you think about that. But Nora, if you don't mind picking up that mic, and you quoted the Chambers of Commerce, because as it happens, Nora here in July 2013, this July, will take up a post as President of the British Chambers of Commerce, which sounds as if that... Yes, that's great. Which kind of sounds like it blows your argument out of the water, Sonia, but, no, wait for it, she's only the second one in the post in 150 years. So there we go. But it places you beautifully to comment on this in terms of the networking, the power of networking, and whether it should be female networking or not.
Thank you. I actually agree with both things. I think traditionally there is an old boys network which is still alive and kicking. I think that networks like the Chambers of Commerce are changing, and I think it's interesting that I've just taken over as chair of Scottish Chambers of Commerce, the first in 100 years, and British Chambers, it'll actually be 350 years if you look back through the annals that we have a woman sitting as president, which is a great honour, and that's in addition to my day job, which I work as chair with Weber Shandwick.
What's making it change, though, Nora? You said it's changing. What's making it change?
I think because the connections, basically, and the way that the working environment is changing. Digital and technology has opened up lots of different avenues for women, particularly international, because time zones are different. Therefore, when the kids are going to sleep in this country, their business is waking up elsewhere. So there's lots of new opportunities that are opening up. And Chambers of Commerce is one of the best international brands that exist today. So actually, the Chambers network, and you'll see this more visibly, hopefully, over the next couple of years, are going to be great exponents of driving the skills, the international and the women's agenda forward. So I look forward to working with all of you in driving that agenda forward. And just to go back to, should you have specific training and mentor groups for one area and another? I think that there are, to take this lady's comment, it is business stage focused. I think for me there are 3 stages. There are the starting out, there's the getting on, and then there's the getting out. And the starting out, I do think that having a female network is very valuable to talk about best practice, to talk about common problems. The getting on bit is equally important. I think it's more generic in the getting on bit because you have problems about growth, about employment law, about team building. But the getting out bit is also interesting because if you want to leave a successful company behind, then actually you have to think about succession planning and how you develop and leave a very prosperous business that's not only keep your current employees in business long term, but also fund your retirement. So I think that there are lots of different areas that you can get different types of network support from. And interestingly, network groups that I used when I started out in business as a little startup company, I still keep friendly with them now. The dynamic has changed and the advice has changed, but people that supported me in those early days as I supported them, we talk about different things. They all now hold very senior companies in both public and private sector companies.
Are these female groups or mixed?
Yeah,
And
both.
Both, right. What did you get specifically from the female networks?
A laugh.
Which should not be undervalued.
And I absolutely agree with that. I mean, we would talk about common problems, about how you deal with men in the boardroom, how you communicate with a mixed gender working team. But we do have a laugh, and humour actually solves a lot of problems, and a problem shared is a problem solved, which I'm a great exponent of.
I want to, again, get from the audience the people who do think that we need female tailored support, and what kind of female tailored support, because it has to say we did have an 80-20, and we do want to have some recommendations that we will put to the Minister as she designs this plan. But just before I do that, I'm going to annoy you, Nora, and ask you, are you the token female head of an old boys network?
Hopefully not. That's up to me to change, isn't it? Actually, I have to say that since I became chair, we've added 2 new board members to the Scottish Chambers of Commerce board, and we've added 2 with another coming on to the British Chambers of Commerce board. So actually the whole dynamic of the structure is changing already.
And do you think that is influential? Because of course there's a big debate about
think
getting more women onto boards at a very senior level and whether or not that is actually going to shift.
I mean, I believe entirely in, I don't believe in quotas. I believe in the right people coming onto boards to take them forward. But I fundamentally believe in the mix of male-female boards. I think they work extremely well and they produce results which are the best for the company or the organisation that they are representing.
Right, okay. Right, some of the people who are in favour of tailored support, again, just want to hear your thoughts. Lady up the back with her hand up, thank you. Sounding like an auctioneer here. 200, is that fine? 250 will be.
Hello.
Hi.
Yeah, I started a network for women, specifically for 40-plus women, to help them get the confidence and to help them connect with other women with different skills to move forward. Strangely enough, although it's tailored for them, a lot of men have started joining. So I think there's a sort of crossover. But I think there is a need to have some women-only networks for women who need that sort of support and acknowledge the problems we have. We started doing some networking recently. We did one in East Lothian with the council. And I was trying to get women to come, women who have little businesses, micro businesses like cake makers or things like that. But what I did find is some of them feel intimidated coming to normal networking meetings where there are a lot of men or a lot of suits because they feel lesser. So there is a confidence issue with some women, and that's what we're trying to address.
So in terms of a female networking group, is it moral support that you're giving, basically?
No, what we're doing is we've got women coming together. I mean, I wanted to start a business, and I needed other women. I needed people with different skills to make it happen. So I was able to come together with these women. And my business idea was to create a website to enable other women to do exactly what I've done. Now, we say together we're working because I will say I'm over 50. And I did feel at the time I was a bit scared about making that leap because I've been in normal employment. And I thought there are probably other women out there or people who have ideas that can't move forward without someone else with different skills. So we're at the point now, we've built a website, and now 4 of us will go for funding. And we want to enable other women to do the same. But as I said, it's been strange that quite a lot of men have thought that's a really good idea and have been joining the website, even though the blog, etc., is for 40-plus women.
Right, okay. Oh, great, we've got some more hands. That's smashing. I want to hear from people and just get your thoughts. So I'll go the lady here. Yes, sorry, I'll describe your dress. Who's wearing a nice black dress with cap sleeved. I'll do my David Dimbleby.
I thought I was very decided, but now I'm a bit on the fence. I'm a business development manager at Indies, and I'm not an entrepreneur. But I work with entrepreneurs every day, male and female, and I think it's safe to say that any service I provide for them is specifically tailored because there are different business needs to every single business and to their education levels. So the specific question is, should there be tailored support for female entrepreneurs? No, there should be tailored support for entrepreneurs. I'm 26, I have no boyfriend, husband, children, nothing. I am perfectly capable of doing exactly what a man can do now. But when it comes to the future and I have a child, who knows, I might need extra support, but so might my husband, so might my partner, so might my parents who are looking after my child whilst I work. It goes much further than a female entrepreneur. It goes to a specific personal case, and I don't think it can be specifically female that we talk about here. I think it's entrepreneurs in general. Right. We have a referendum coming up. If people who want to have an independent Scotland, we needed a sustainable economy, and that's for entrepreneurs, not just females.
So tailor to the person and not to the gender. I know that, Sonia, your opening thing was, well, that's okay if it's a level playing field, but, you know, in many instances it's not a level playing field. I wonder if there's also an element of a kind of generational difference here, which is a good thing, I think. Who has the hand down here, the lady here?
Thank you. I believe that there should be tailored support for women based on our society is changing radically. If we go back to, say, my granny's generation, we wouldn't be having this conference in my granny's generation. There wouldn't have been, 200 women all running their own business, interested in starting their own business and talking about enterprise. I've got a daughter who's 11. I'm hoping that by the time my daughter's in a conference like this, there is no need for it because we have reached that stage where the one-size-fit-all approach really, really does work. But what we've got in the room here, what we've got at the moment, is we've got a generation of women who have gone from, you know, they are breaking ground. The laws are changing. You know, not so long ago, I remember a wife was taxed, her income was taxed as part of her husband's income. You know, we're still talking about kind of 100 years before women get to equal pay. And so I don't think having a one-size-fits-all support network or kind of package works until we're a little bit further down the line.
So can you give me some examples of the kind of tailored support that you think would be beneficial?
I think it's the support that helps create that equal playing field. So until, I guess, we stand in the playground and we see as many husbands picking up children from school as we do women, until, you know, the kind of the dad is maybe the primary caregiver, or just assumed to be the primary caregiver.
That's a societal issue, isn't it? So do you see this as a societal issue rather than a business issue?
Yes, it is. It's about more than just, here's a grant because you're a woman. It's about society creating the situation where women and men can be equal in business.
Right, okay. Thanks. I want to bring in Julie Weeks on, then I'm going to speak to Iain and Gordon, but I just thought I'd give them a bit of warning, make them a bit nervous for a wee while. No, nothing makes these guys nervous, I know that. But Julie, well, tell us a little bit about, is it Womenable? Is that how I say it? This network in the States. And I think particularly addressing that question of, is this a societal issue that we have to try and take steps to change?
I think what's important to bring into this discussion is the fact that women learn and lead differently than men do. I mean, we just think differently. We all know that. We learn differently, lead differently, and I think so support for women's entrepreneurship should recognize that. And I think one of the things that I'm hearing is very kind of transactional and discrete elements of support from you know what I've heard thus far, and what support for women in their business development needs are. What has evolved in the United States, it's a much more relational model of learning and support. I'm comparing women's business centers in the United States with small business development centers in general, and a small business development center is come in, take a class, and leave. A women's business center, you come in, maybe you're taking a class, you're part of a peer support group, you're getting one-on-one counseling and mentoring. It's a community, and that's the kind of... So
men and women are treated differently in terms of the business advice they get, or the way that
business
advice is delivered?
It's the how. It's not necessarily the what, it's the how. And I think what we should recognize and bring into the discussion is how we women learn and lead differently, and so support should reflect that. Right. And you know, as somebody mentioned earlier, there should be tailored support for everyone. And in women's business centers, about 20% of the clients are men. So there are men that think and lead that way too. And there are plenty of women that go in and they just want one piece of advice, like Tanya. Yeah. I'd like to come in, get the information I need, and then grow my business, scale it, sell it, get rich, all that great thing, and become a philanthropist, which is probably what you're going to be doing, right? So, I mean, I think you need to have... But
I'm just wondering what Tanya, would you have gone, Tanya, to a women's business support service, as described there by Julie?
If I thought it was going to give me what I was looking for, the information, I went to whoever I was needing to get what I needed to get over that stage. So if I thought so, I must admit, if I could, you know, Nora actually was my mentor for a little while, and what I liked about Nora that I hadn't had from my male mentors previously was the fact that you're a working mum yourself, you have a young daughter, and it was the first sort of time that I had women's support on a one-to-one, and I did notice a difference. I can't say I didn't, I did, and it was wonderful to have it. But to be honest, we hardly talked about it because you're so good at mentoring on the business side that we actually didn't have much women talk. We did get right down to the business. Right. So it's whatever's required at that particular time. But
at quite a discrete level, it was something, the fact that Nora was a woman was something that kind of felt right.
Oh, I loved it. Yeah, absolutely loved it.
Do you want to sit together? Can I bring in Natalie here? Natalie Crayton. Wave your salt again, Natalie, go and give it another plug. Set up Hebridean Sea Salt 2-3 years ago?
We launched in July 2012.
Oh gosh.
Yes, we're pretty new.
But working on it presumably for a while before that?
Yeah, there was about a 2-year development stage before that into sort of the technologies and the market as well.
Right. What kind of support did you feel you needed? What did you get? And what's your thoughts in terms of having tailored support?
I'm not sure about tailored support. I think it is, it's the individual's experience. And with me, my first initial approach to anyone wasn't positive. It was, I wasn't taken seriously. Oh, why do you want to do this? Oh, your financials. They just didn't believe in anything that I had written and done.
And did you think that was attached to your... Actually, before you answer that, Nora has got to go, so let me get her out of the thing. She's got a train to catch. Apologies, Natalie, and that was my fault. I should have watched the clock there. Nora, thank you very much. Thanks for doing this. Sorry, Natalie. Did you feel that you weren't being taken seriously because you were a girl, or what?
I feel that it was my age as well. I was in my sort of late 20s. I was quite bubbly and, very enthusiastic. And sometimes it was more of a generational thing that someone who was older and more sort of experienced in business just thought, oh, go away. You're getting kind of, maybe I was getting on their nerves because I was so enthusiastic, and it took a long time, a lot of perseverance from me to move forward and get funding and be taken seriously with my idea.
What makes me think, actually, Julie, that what you were talking about, a sort of a business centre that takes mainly women in, but you were saying that some men are coming in who also want to be dealt with in a different fashion. Maybe part of this is also that we have too hard and fast an idea of what an entrepreneur is. It's Alan Sugar, and he barks at people, and he says you're fired, and if you've not got balls of steel, you better get out. Accent very dodgy. But And perhaps, a woman can get into that mould as well, as long as they also adhere to those kind of stereotypes. Whereas you, Natalie, going in, not conforming to what people would perceive to be an entrepreneur, you're really missing any mould, aren't you?
Yeah, very much so. And I've got 3 young children who I speak about all the time. Why not?
Don't speak about the kids.
Well, that's what you feel. You feel, should I speak about my children? Well, why not? They're the huge part of my life. It's like, why shouldn't I? It's 2013. Come on, get a grip. But the first I had actually got Highlands and Islands paid for a management consultant to come and work with me for a day. Great guy. But the first thing he did was sit down and say to me, he was like a football manager. And he was like, come on, you've got 3 young people at home. How are you going to do this? I rely on my wife to look after my kids for me. How are you going to do it? And I was like, well, I do have a partner. They do have a father who is capable of looking after them.
Natalie, you've upset Iain sitting next to you.
But he turned out he was actually a football manager for Queen's Park Rangers. Or he was like their top scorer for the year or something. But yeah, so I was right,
Yeah. Let's pass the mic to Iain and let's get his disgust here. She's got 2. I don't know whether is this about focusing on women specifically, or maybe changing the way that we deliver business advice in a more wholesale fashion.
This is an emotional topic, and I think the key thing is that no business starts with a plan. It starts with a conversation. And if you don't give people a chance to have that conversation, it won't happen. And all the obstacles that we're talking about here, all the issues of tailored support come out of the fact that we don't allow people to have conversations. And we've come up with a system which is crap. And it's all about outputs and indicators, and it's nothing about helping entrepreneurs. It's actually about helping people fill in figures and forms. And if you go down this route of tailored support for women, you are being complicit in a support network and a system that is not working. It's an opportunity to actually stand back and say, an entrepreneur sees the world the way they want it to be. You want to see the world the way you want it to be. Seize this opportunity and do that. I mean, your experiences are absolutely no different from when I left teaching 20 years ago, and the business advisor said to me, why do you want to start a business? You've got a good job. He ended up running the bloody business startup stuff for Scottish Enterprise. That's the kind of atmosphere that still prevails. So I think it's really a great opportunity. Stand back and change all of this. If it's an emotional subject, as I said, think now about what you actually want to see happen. And there's another key point that's coming out of this. Once you start seeing the system works like this, you go down that route, and then you start talking about creating the equivalent of old boys' networks, but it's old girls' networks. I don't like networks, and I'll leave you with this kind of thing, which really was the catalyst for me. I had to drop some stuff into a guy who was a solicitor, and he was a member of what was called the RAC Club up in Blytheswood Square. It's now the Blytheswood Hotel. And he sat there, and I handed over these photographs. He went, "Don't do that. It's a club. You don't bring paperwork into the club." And I thought, what the hell am I doing here? And what am I doing with this guy? I don't want anything to do with you. Which really leaves the central point, entrepreneurs are outsiders. If you want to change something, recognise that you're an outsider and start going out to change it. Don't play along with the system, because the system is about networks, and it will never work, and it will always screw you over. Rant over.
Well, 10 minutes to go and he chucks in a grenade. Can I have some thoughts on that? Because here we are talking about, taking back some recommendations to the Minister for Youth Employment and, how we design a more female-friendly business environment. And Iain saying, rip it up and start again. What do you think, the lady here and then the lady here? Because one question I haven't asked is whether or not we need a women's enterprise minister, which was one of the kind of key questions that I should ask.
So, kind of lots of things occur to me. First, just to say to Iain, not all networks are dysfunctional. I think women's networks are about relationships, not about clubs, or at least they can be. So can men's. But I think, for me, it's kind of a bit of a no-brainer. You need a mixture for all sorts of reasons. But one thing, for reasons that Sonia has talked about, and Julie, one thing I think that hasn't been mentioned is the opportunity, the political, the social opportunity in terms of, we really are here at the end of, 5,000 years of patriarchy. I'm not going to get all bangy feminist about you, but, we're at a really interesting point in terms of capitalism. What does grown-up capitalism look like? Women tend to be not so much interested about growth and profit. They tend to, and I use the word tend to advisedly, be interested in social responsibility and about creating good jobs. So are lots of men. But what's really interesting is when you get a group of women in a room and somebody is starting an ironing business, you don't get a snooty guy going, women's work, ha, ha, ha. It's just about creating a creative environment where a group of like-minded people can share and synergize and create energy. Why not?
Well, yeah, you say why not? And to be honest, when I was sort of looking at my notes, sort of preparing for this, I would have said the same as you, I suppose. Well, it's a no-brainer. I mean, okay, let's have both. If some people want to take advantage of it, equally, that's fine as well. But I suppose you could put the argument, and it is only an argument, that if you have female-only networks, it might, in Iain's view, which I hadn't foreseen, be kind of propping up a bankrupt system that actually you want to tear down completely and start again, discuss, or perpetuating that idea of women as being a special case, which some people might feel is not a positive thing. So I know what you're saying. Immediately, the let's have a mix is a no-brainer, but you could argue that there is a downside to it.
You could argue, though, equally that women's, I think, healthy, functional women's networks will never exclude men. I mean, in my opinion. I mean, one of the key things as well, I work for a charity called Women Onto Work, and we work with women who are in crisis, a lot of women returners, survivors of abuse. And the key thing for us, you can teach people business skills all you like and employability skills and all the rest of it, but what it all comes down to is confidence. And, I appreciate and respect the women here who say that they're determined and their husbands help them and they're very confident they get what they want. Of course they do. But the facts of the matter are that a hell of a lot of women aren't. And women find that being in an all-female environment, not all the time, but sometimes, can really help them develop that confidence. Then they can go out and use that confidence in the mainstream and change the system and do all of those other wonderful things. But there is, I think, definitely a place for gender-specific support. Incidentally, just out of interest or maybe not, if I were setting up my own business, and it's something I'm thinking about, I may not access gender-specific support myself. I would hope to contribute to that, but there is a place for it, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, and I suppose if it were to help boost the numbers, if you like, and redress the balance a bit, because the numbers that you heard this morning are pretty poor, then it might fundamentally shift the axis of that bankrupt system, as you say, Iain, and make it less dysfunctional than you clearly think it is.
So the one word I would use actually is judgmental. And I think any system that's supportive but not judgmental is the one we are after. And it really is interesting that one of the key points, just taking back what you've said there, is women networks are less judgmental than male ones. And particularly in that interaction. That's one of the things I've found with a lot of the programs I've run. But that comes back to letting people have the conversation about why they want to start the business.
Sonia, what did you want to say?
It's quite interesting because one of the things that we have to realise that many of us are micro businesses, and the way that we're going to grow is through relationships, and the new currency is partnerships and joint ventures. But you need to build trust and be able to start that dialogue. And another thing in terms of our network, we started as the National Black Women's Network, and we used to get lots of calls saying, I'm not black and I'm not a woman, but I want to come. So we had to form a mainstream network, which is how we got Let's Talk Business. And what we found with business is that people are looking for a new way, a new model to do business. The days of Blockbuster are over. That's why they're bankrupt. We want eBays and Amazons, which means a new thinking. And for young people, the reason why you have that confidence and you believe that you could go through, it took hard work to get us to where we are today. And we're still fighting to get the changes we want to see. So this may be the way you do business now, but it took a long time for us to get there, and we are still fighting and championing to see the landscape that we feel women should have to run businesses.
Okay, thanks, Sonia. I want to bring in Gordon, and Morag, you're listening very intently here, so I'll get your impressions too. And Gordon's from RBS. I'm not going to ask you to answer for the banking system, so don't think it. But having said that, you know, it is a key institution within a very conventional system, as we have discussed. Is there an element of guilt of propping up something that is too rigid, something that is exclusive, something that the outsiders, whether that's because they're a woman or any other reason they're an outsider, just finds very difficult to penetrate?
So, Kaye, you might expect me as being the token banker to look at some of the stats. I think the economic case and the commercial case is compelling fact. We've heard earlier this morning about men-led businesses start up at twice the rate of women-led businesses. That could create 35,000 more jobs. It could create £8 billion for the Scottish economy. And there's an 87% of Women Enterprise Scotland surveyed women want to grow their business. So there's the facts from an economic and a commercial perspective. And I think that's worth knowing and doing something about. That's the first thing I would say. The second thing I would say around that would be, how do we achieve critical mass? Because there are good stories in here. There are great role models in here as well, but it's not critical mass. And I think the point about availability for me is also that choice. Our customers want that choice, and RBS, we give them that choice of a female-led business relationship manager to support their business. So that availability and that choice, I think, is really important as well. Another part I would say, there's been a lot mentioned today about confidence and role models. I sat in the startup group this morning, and we've got Natalie and Tanya on stage. We had Sheila from Oil and Glass in that group this morning, for those that were in the room with me. The women want to grow that confidence, access to role models that are authentic, that are believable, that they could see themselves being, that inspire them, that they think it's achievable. Not some of the role models that perhaps have been showcased in the UK in the past or indeed now. And I think it's showcasing those achievements. I think the point that was made earlier about education at a younger age is right, but I think that's also right for boys and young men as it is for girls and young women. I think there's something about that. So that's my view, and I think as a result of that, there's a case to have that mass, critical mass and availability.
Okay. And how do we shift there? What's the correct response? That's the thing, and that's what our discussion has been about. Morag, I'm looking at is it 1 o'clock here? Can you bear with us for another 10 minutes before you have your lunch? Is that okay? I know we're running a little bit over this morning. Is your tummy rumbling, Tanya? We'll get out there soon. Because there were some specifics here about, and you mentioned it there, Gordon, female role models, female mentoring, the networking, I think we've covered quite a lot, and also funding. Morag, would you put any kind of emphasis on any of those aspects more than any other? And then the other thing I want to ask you, again, the question I forgot and I apologise, do we need a women's enterprise minister? And it'd be good to get some thoughts on that, whether you see that as being a positive thing or would it just be another kind of, political structure?
I think one of the puzzles I've had about the main topic of this debate is, who are we asking for this support? And there's two types of support. There's the mainstream channels, so the sort of business gateway and the banking and that kind of thing. And then there's the other channels, which we've touched upon, and there's been some interesting comments about networks and women's groups and that sort of thing. And I actually feel quite strongly that we actually have a great deal of potential within the existing groups of business women to actually do something quite strong that is separate from what we are coming to expect as where we look for support. And in fact, we have in Scotland, we've got Women into Business, which is supported by Business Gateway. That lasts for a maximum of 2 years. And then after that stage, there's not really any formal networking. And speaking on behalf of Scottish Women in Business, I know a lot of people come through Women into Business and go to Scottish Women into Business after that, and similarly throughout the regions. We actually have, with those kind of networks, some really powerful, strong, excellent role models who can actually be the role models and create a kind of almost a business growth system right the way through, from startup right the way through, as Nora said, to taking. But
they're more localised role models.
The regional aspect is only facilitating networking.
No, I only say that because kind of usually when we speak about role models, we tend to think of people who are known, publicly. Everybody knows them. And if you think about business role models, oh my God, they do tend to be male. They do. If you went around the room and said, right, name a famous, and I suppose that is, business person, it would probably be a male name that would pop right off the top of your head. But are you saying that you don't have to have that big, high-level role model?
I would love to see more normal businesswomen actually becoming role models. I really would. I think that there's a lot of things such as The Apprentice that give businesswomen a very bad name.
Well, and the blokes, to be fair.
Yeah. But the other thing is, and just on a side issue, and we've talked a lot about confidence here already, women are not that confident at talking about how good they do.
But you know what, you're right on that, I suppose, and the lady here brought that up too. But do we also have to be careful of creating a self-perpetuating cycle? How many times do you hear women are not confident, women are not confident? Are we taking in these messages? My children are 2 girls, 6 and nearly 11. I don't want them to be constantly hearing women are not confident, because they're going to believe it. I don't want them to hear it, and I would do everything in conversations that I'm involved in to make sure that they don't hear that. And I would lie to them and tell them that there's absolutely no reason that you can't be utterly confident, because I'm concerned about that.
And that's why I think it was only a week or 2 ago in the news, there was a school down south that was giving their all-girl classes boasting lessons, as they called it. Actually, I think that's great. I think to be able to talk proudly of your achievements is
yes,
great.
But then there's a presumption that you need it. There's a presumption that you're a wallflower and that you need to be given help to boast. They wouldn't give that to blokes. I wonder if we need to start. Oh, I'm going off on one here. I'm taking you off the point, but I do worry about that. Sorry, the lady here wanted to speak, and the lady here, and I'm anxious to get in as many voices before we close. that lady's going to get a microphone. I can see you there, and this lady. Oh, right, I've seen you both. Don't worry. No, don't worry. We've got time. We're fine.
I was going to say confidence is great, but cash is even better. And I kind of think that sometimes, you know, the clean tech and high tech, there's a lot of funding, there's a lot of support, and perhaps other industries that maybe more women are not taking as seriously as saying, you know, sea salt. You can see that could be a really high growth international big business. And you need more people to get behind that. I think there needs to be more funding. Like the Edge Fund is fantastic because it is supporting more generic businesses. And I'd like to see more kind of angel funding, et cetera, not just for as I say, the clean tech and the high tech.
Well, thanks for mentioning funding, and I apologise that we haven't had the time to get into that. There's just so much was to cover because it obviously is a huge, huge area. The lady there wanted to speak, and there's a lady there too. I just left that one with you. But then the lady there is definitely getting it.
It's Susan Harkins. I'm business manager for Business Gateway in Edinburgh. And I just wanted to share with you why we started up some what we would call bespoke training for women. Back in November, I went along to a few events, startup events. Probably about 100 people attending. 50% of the audience were young women and entrepreneurs. And out of the 32 speakers that I saw during that day, 2 were women. And I went along to a breakfasting event, and I thought, why do we go to breakfast events? Because most women have they have to drop their children off at work. It's just, you know, it's just
the way it is.
Not good. And again, all speakers were male. They were very good, but there was no female speakers, and it just brought home to me that I actually could do something about it in my role as a business gateway manager. So we set up a women's network. We started it in February under the Women in Business because there wasn't one there before in Edinburgh. We had 48 women attending. The first one, we've got one next week. We've got 50 women on. It's just a lunchtime event. We ask women entrepreneurs to come, mostly entrepreneurs. We want business people to come. And we just have speakers, mainly women. We also set up a Women Mean Business program. So we do mainstream business support, but we also recognise that I think there's only 35% of the startups in Edinburgh are women, so there's something wrong with that. So we run a bespoke programme, we run 3 a year, and it's taking women through finance, sales, and just, I feel there is a different approach. Women have a different approach to business, and it's about recognising that. But I just think until you address the problems in government, so we don't have enough women in the cabinet, until you address these problems, more women on the board, more women at a higher level, then you're always going to have this issue. I just feel we need to do it, and us as women need to promote other women.
So do we need a women's enterprise minister?
Probably, but we need more women just in the ministerial level, in government, just and in public life.
I agree. I do think these subliminal messages that we get, particularly to young girls, are really influential. And the lady just behind you there with the glasses on, and then there's another lady with glasses on.
I think any network is really only as good as the people that are in it and run it, whether it is women only, mixed or men only. And also, you only get out what you put in. If you go in there thinking you're going to get wonderful things, you have to put wonderful things in first. What you put in comes back to you manyfold, good and bad, unfortunately. The other thing about confidence is that goes back to schools and education, but also in our own homes. As you're saying, you teach your children that they've got to be positive. Boys suffer from a lack of confidence as much as girls. That's where bullying, etc., comes in, and that has to be addressed. It's the role models, but they have to be sensible role models, and that's a big problem. People like Tanya, I've known Tanya for 6 years. I knew Tanya when she had the bump. She to me is a role model because she's gone up and she's really fought. She's got where she's going. I'm still trying to catch on her coattails, to be honest. But she's got out there and she's done things, and that's the sort of role models we need to be aspiring to have in the area.
Okay, thanks. The lady over there.
My name is Maggie O'Carroll. I'm from the UK Women's Enterprise Policy Group and the Women's Organisation. We provide support for women. And I think there's a lot of evidence to suggest that gender-specific provision works for some women. and therefore quite a credible argument to actually have a package of support which is targeted specifically towards women. And certainly we would see about 3,000 women a year, and on reflection, many of those women would feed back saying, well, in actual fact, I came because it was, and received the service and benefited from that service because it was labelled and clearly branded and marketed to me. So they found that helpful. We certainly accept that it's not for everybody, but there is quite, and as I say, our academic colleagues, particularly Professor Carter, has done work on this, as with other academics, to identify that it works. Just a couple of comments and observations in relation to the deficit model and that kind of discourse and language around women being special and requiring additional support. They just, certainly we would suggest that they require different support. And that doesn't mean to say that it's any better or any worse, and it doesn't put them on a negative playing field. So that's troubling, that kind of labelling, I think, in relation to this debate. I think it's about difference as opposed to...
yeah, I mean, you're right, language is incredibly important, but we can't, it's difficult to control people, you know, and it's difficult to pick people up on every word that they use. You know, we operate in a very kind of social... you know, environment, clearly. And if you're trying to tie down language, I think you're in trouble, because people's reactions to it come from what they feel, what they experience, and what their kind of cultural experience has been. I mean, I'm continually getting picked up if you're live on radio for a particular word. You know, you could sit and do it and listen all day long. You could pick me up on this and pick me up on that. Not going to get me anywhere.
I suppose what I'm saying is that it's not an either or. I think you need a package of support. And what we do have, and I take Iain's point in relation to the quality of some of that support currently is very poor, because it is a one-size-fits-all. It isn't tailored in any way, shape or form for an entrepreneur, be it a man or a woman. But I think there is, you know, the evidence is there, independent evidence that gender-specific provision does work and has an impact.
Okay, thank you very much. Listen, I think unfortunately you're going to have, I don't mean unfortunately you're going to have the last word, unfortunately I see other hands there. I think we do have, is it a comments board? What's the board that we have, Jackie? Oh, right, okay. That's looking a wee bit wee. So we really would love to get some of your feedback here. I know we've got lots of stuff on Twitter that I can see that we can maybe pick that up, but I think we've got a little session later in the afternoon where we can get some feedback if you haven't had the chance to ask a question or make a comment. Fantastic, thank you. Can I ask you to show your appreciation for the panel? Thank you very much.